Well, speaking of truth that the New York Times is scared of, they have discovered the birth certificate of a famous public health official, and it turns out an R and a D were missing from his name because his name is supposed to be Fauci rather than Fauci. Now, the other thing Fauci forgot is never in writing and always in cash. Apparently, he forgot both lessons, of course, because it turned out he sent real money, traceable money, laundered through an NGO for gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which may have been the source of COVID-19.
Okay, now
and he has emails. As soon as this story broke, he's right now. The emails are very cutely phrased. So you have to. The Epoch Times did a good breakdown of this, showing what the meaning of this is when you put it in the context of a calendar of other events that are taking place. And that's where it's obvious that he was coordinating the effort to suppress information, including working with Google, working with Twitter, working with YouTube to suppress information about this. This goes to Bobby Kennedy's suit in the Facebook case, where he was saying the government is behind these efforts to suppress independent health information about COVID-19. Well, now there's evidence that that was taking place in these emails. Plus, this was a coordinated effort. Fauci demanding people get on phones for certain calls, sharing certain articles that had this content in it that he wanted suppressed. Many of the people that put out the story that said that there was no basis to believe a lab leak could even be responsible were telling him the opposite and admitting, there's kind of a problem. This kind of thing looks like it's kind of human engineered. And we have that research you did,
Let's back it up a little bit for those who may not know. Dr. Fauci, everyone knows who Dr. Fauci is. I guess the most material things that have been discovered recently. I guess statements made. Well, the exchange with Rand Paul, where he denied on Rand Paul questioning funding any research in this lab in Wuhan. I believe he also denied any gain of function research, which now has turned out to be false based on these emails that were disclosed. It also kind of puts his 2017 article that Nate Brody and I talked about with Eric, predicting that Trump will undoubtedly face something like this in his presidency. It puts that into a different angle now, but let's only argue the facts. First question: who got the emails? It was a FOIA request, or how did the emails get uncovered?
There's been a bunch of FOIA requests. So some of the emails came out through BuzzFeed, which seemed like a control mechanism. As the guys at the Duran, you can see them on YouTube. They also have their own locals page, the Duran.locals.com. They were talking about the timing of this is suspicious, but that it looked like that the fact that BuzzFeed was one of the first sources said somebody was trying to put control on this. But for further backup on this, two things. One, Rand Paul probably knew what he was doing. And that's where Fauci didn't understand. Rand Paul did a very nice job setting a trap for Fauci because it might be the case that Paul might have seen those emails already when he asked those questions. So he knew Fauci had spent the last year trying to cover up complicity concerning his activities in gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the possibility that COVID-19 was a created, man-made virus in that lab. Now, going back so that's part one, I think is part of what was happening. And then Judicial Watch, a bunch of other people have followed up with a bunch of FOIA requests, been requesting it for a while. So they and some other groups were going to get it anyway. And some other people have been getting it and putting it out. But that's part one. Part two is I did an interview with Francis Boyle last May about this. Francis Boyle is one of the leading bioweapons legal experts in the world. He's been fighting these issues for decades. He came out right away. I mean, you can see why certain people are banned from social media because the first guy I hear talk about this was Francis Boyle because where did he get a platform? Alex Jones. That's where he got a platform. And Trump was being told this in February, was being told that it likely is a man-made virus and it should be looked at. And politically, you can see the benefit to Trump if that were the case.
Actually, just pause it there. Everyone should appreciate that because this was at the time where it was being called racist to refer to it as the Wuhan virus or the China virus, which I can sort of understand the way those words were being used. But This was at the time where it was being called racist to identify its place of origin. Before, you had the Indian variant, the South African variant, whatever. This is when you had pre-election Trump, openly putting pressure on China and trying to blame this on China, where everyone was all of a sudden denying that. And it could have favorably impacted his upcoming election. So we'll leave that there, but everyone can appreciate that.
Massively. And so what happens, what the emails disclose is that Fauci was coordinating this cover-up. So Boyle comes out right away, and that's where some of it's getting into the press. While Jones is the biggest talker about it, Boyle is a very well-respected source. It's just the institutional media won't let him on anymore, even though he helped write the laws that are supposed to prohibit this. And to give some further backstory, in 2012, some Dutch and Chinese researchers decided to go out and yip about what gain-of-function research really is. And for folks that don't know, gain-of-function, BS level 4, it's my favorite thing. It's called BS. Biosafety level 4. Gain-of-function means you're taking a virus and making it more deadly to more people and making it easier to transmit to more people and humans in particular. There's nothing about that that's biodefense. But that's the legal pretext by which all of this research is done. Because we were supposed to be getting rid of these actual biological weapons a long time ago.
Did anybody know this at the time? Because I can tell you, call me stupid. I didn't know it. I find it shocking and absolutely unacceptable.
Well, people can look at Francis Boyle has been talking about it since the late 1980s. He helped pass the laws, draft the laws in the U.S. Congress to help try to prohibit this. But what happened is in 2012, these people come out and yip about all the different ways they've made more viruses more lethal. And it shocked a whole bunch of people because they weren't supposed to be talking about this publicly. Causes a big controversy here in the States because it turns out the Obama administration has greenlit a bunch of this across the United States. So Obama comes in and says, 2014, no more. We ban all gain-of-function research. So what does Fauci do at the NIH? He funnels the money through a group in New York that turns around and gives it to the Wuhan Institute of Virology that then does exactly this research. And unfortunately for Fauci, that he had hoped wasn't public. And this is what the emails show. The articles back in January of 2020 are quoting people from the Wuhan Institute of Virology saying, hey, by the way, the Americans helped fund this. And the Americans approved it, even after they supposedly banned it. I mean, they can't help themselves. And so that's why Fauci's eyes are as big as saucers. And he's all of a sudden demanding everybody do these teleconferences and calls to make sure everybody get on the right message. And not long after that, and then there's later emails that confirm it, they get big tech on board, they get the media on board, and that's when all of a sudden there's this campaign to discredit anybody who raises the question. And the reason why most Americans don't know about it is because the only place Francis Boyle has, even though, again, well-respected law professor to this day at the University of Illinois, one of the most well-regarded law schools in the nation, top 50 law school typically. So the fact this guy can't get on any mainstream press should tell you something about the mainstream press wanting to suppress information about biological weapons. And that goes back to more than a half a century of biological experimentation, which none of this would come as a surprise to you for the audience. You wouldn't have had to wait for the emails or the public disclosures or the stories to break if you had been a member at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, because there were hush-hush episodes that addressed this over a month ago. And so they give the whole history of it. But his hand got caught in the cookie jar. Biggest problem for him is he doesn't face certain problems. People are asking, can you sue him? He's a government official, almost impossible to sue under sovereign immunity, unfortunately. They should use this as an opportunity to patch a Fauci law that says high-ranking public health officials can be sued for lying to the public about this sort of thing. But until that happens, he can't be sued civilly. However, he likely lied to Senator Paul, which is lying. His lie was a lot more material, and his other lies to Congress were a lot more material than anything Roger Stone ever did. So let's see if he gets criminally prosecuted. I'm not betting on it, but he is at criminal exposure.
Okay, so that answers two super chats. I said I was going to get to Fauci's legal exposure from the chat I brought up previously. Zephyrin, welcome. And Beavis Wallets, I'm going to take a picture of this and we're going to get back to it. I still have a couple more questions about Fauci. Okay, the question I'm asking myself while my soul turns to a little bit more stone listening to this absolute madness. Okay, so Fauci is Fauci defying Obama's orders? Is it, wink, wink, nudge, nudge? This is what we say publicly. This is what we do privately. And depending on the answer to that question, what are the chances that Trump knows what's going on when he comes into office?
Trump, Trump was, I have reason to believe, I'll put it that way, that Trump was told this in early February, late January of 2020. And some stories have come out that he was trying to get members of Congress to push this in February and March. And this was around in March, he would retweet me about not going down a certain path. So he was on this path until he got, too much bad advice that told him he would be responsible for everybody dead. And he was just a bigot for talking about China. And so he backed off. But he wanted actually gain of function issue, this research item in particular, raised out of the gate. And now mostly it was Fauci conspired, frankly, with a whole bunch of people. So what was key was some of the people he was emailing to talk. He was emailing people that don't work in the U.S. government. So there were people who had become critical in organizing the media and big tech suppression of this information. I mean, this was an extraordinary conspiracy. It's like a bifurcated plot against the election, as well as a plot against the president and the country. Because this information would have been game changing, not only for the election, but for everybody would have seen this. The number one economic beneficiary of COVID-19 lockdowns across the nation was the country of China. Their economy boomed last year. Well, everyone else just sunk.
As did certain big tech companies, which seem to have been working hand in hand in controlling what stories were censored and what stories led to deplatforming. Steve Hilton did a show on the investigation of Fauci based on then publicly available documents on NIH that have been removed since. I don't know who Steve Hilton is, but thank you, Tancred.
He's a Fox News weekend guy.
No, it's just beyond shocking. And what's more shocking than all of this is CNN coming out, and their angle, their spin is that it's noble Fauci doing his best to protect the world from Trump, knowing, and they know damn well that people are not going to go read these emails, because I went through to read some of them, but I didn't have the time to do all of them. They know there are other people out there just going to rely on CNN. I'm surprised CNN didn't say it was illegal for people to go read the emails on their own. You have to listen to us, but they're spinning it as though Fauci is the hero and not arguably the villain who probably just lied to Congress. And what impact did those lies have? Apparently, so what did he want? They authorized $600,000, or was it much more from what I've read?
It was at least that, but the initial Boyle was the one that was on top of this early on, because he tracks all of this obsessively. And so the information then was that something like 1.7 million was laundered through different NGOs that went to the Wuhan Institute of Virology for this research. And again, the problem was people at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the official narrative was supposed to be that the money was given to them for research that was not against the rules. The problem is the Wuhan Institute of Virology people had come out and yipped in 2018 because they were so thrilled about what they were doing and made sure everybody knew the NA. That's what triggered Fauci's paranoia, because it was an article that came that quoted that information that all of a sudden sends Fauci into this email buzz. Boom, 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 boom. We got to coordinate a message. We got to coordinate it quickly. And, and I'm sure there's more information coming out. I think what happened is Judicial Watch and some other people's FOIA requests were about to be granted, and they knew that. So to try to get out of the head of the story, they gave it to BuzzFeed and some other people to try to contain it. It hasn't worked. Latest polling shows that most of the country now believes that this was a man-made virus, and they're starting to catch up to Fauci's role in that process. The reason why a lot of people across the West wanted to suppress this is because they're all doing this kind of thing. And they're all doing different forms of gain of function research. They claim they're not, but there's good reason to suspect otherwise. And basically, people are still developing bioweapons in secret. The U.S. has a half-century history of illegally using Americans as guinea pigs.
Yeah, you got
people go back to San Francisco, or like I said, go watch the Hush Hush. That'll give you the whole detail.
I think the Tuskegee experiments are another good example where people, which is why anybody says trust the government today, you are naive at best and something else at worst, because the government, in fact, does not. It's not that they don't deserve to be trusted. They merit all of the scrutiny that they have earned over the history of government, and Western government, not just any government.
And Thomas Frank for The Guardian, who's a liberal, lefty, wrote that if this turns out to be true, it'll totally shake his and the many other people's worldview that had come to trust the white lab coats. White lab coats and black robes are never two sources of authority to ever trust.
Are we waiting on any more release of emails? Are there any more?
Oh, yeah. I think 3,000 more documents were released either today or yesterday. Some more are coming. There's going to be tons more because all they got was just the stuff at the beginning. I guarantee you he's been doing good when you go both further back and further forward, you're going to find a lot more. So if Fauci was smart, he'd get out of Dodge and get some, look into some nice places in Brazil.
If Fauci worked with big tech, doesn't that make them state agents and lose their private company status, in the words of Clarence Thomas?
That's exactly why Bobby Kennedy's bringing suits, one of the most important suits. Judges waiting on a judge's decision. So you brought it. I mean, Children's Health Defense, I think, is the named party. I'm not sure. I think Bobby Kennedy may be a party too, but that's why that was a critical suit. Again, he was ahead of the curve on this legal issue.
I mean, it's just so over the top. You can't even fully appreciate how bad it is, and people are just going to tune out, and they're going to tune out and go listen to New York Times and CNN.